There we are. Welcome to episode 56 of Quarkus
Hey.
Insights.
Hello.
This time we're going back to basics, configuring Quarkus. We should have done this a while ago, I think, but so anyway, the quick news we have. Roberto is going to be here about the configuration, but of course, like last week, the big news was Quarkus 2.0, and which has we had a nice Brady Bunch episode last week.
Launch party.
Yeah, launch party. 2.01 came out. There was some bug fixes coming there. It's been great from feedback. And otherwise, things a bit quiet. Quiet. I'm not going to call it quiet. I'll say we are continuing on working on the upcoming 2.1, which is going to be end of this month, I think. Going back to releasing continuously rather than we had this little break for 2. We're going to go back to be a bit more aggressive again. Okay, but anyway, we have a lot of stuff to cover. So Roberto is here. You were here last time. You didn't get to talk much, I think.
Yeah. I was just trying to fill in the numbers.
Yes, you were make sure we had
preparing for this week.
Yeah. But give a quick introduction for you, and then
Sure.
Get started. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for having me here. So my name is Roberto Cortez. I work in the Quarkus team, more specifically in everything that's related with SmallRye. So if you're not aware, so SmallRye is a bunch of implementations that implement microprofile API. But not only they implement API, but we also provide a lot of other features additionally to those APIs. So I think it becomes a little bit interesting because we try to go way beyond what microprofile gives to us. And if you don't know, so Quarkus uses SmallRye as the back implementation for the microprofile APIs, and also uses SmallRye for a lot of the additional features that we provide, right? Not only that, so SmallRye is also used in other application servers like Wildfly and WebSphere Liberty. So we have a lot of consumers on our platform. Plus, some of the APIs also provide their own independent APIs and libraries. So meaning that you don't really require Quarkus or Liberty or whatever other application server to use them on their own. So for instance, one of the things we're going to talk about here today is, of course, configuration, which is backed by SmallRye Config. And SmallRye Config is actually an API that you can use without Quarkus or without any, so it's completely standalone, right? Of course, then Quarkus provides a couple of extra things on top, but if you have your own typical application and you don't really require any runtime, but require configuration, feel free to use SmallRye Config standalone, which for most of the things I'm going to show here will work, right?
Okay, very nice. I actually didn't realize the standalone stuff. That's cool. Well, maybe I should use it.
That's the same for other SmallRye libraries too, right?
Yeah. So
yeah, it is. Yeah.
There are a lot of other SmallRye libraries that you can use standalone, like for instance, things like OpenAPI, right? But then there are other things because depending on the integrations that you have, so instance, things like SmallRye Health, which give you the health endpoints, they don't make much sense for you to use without an application server or without an HTTP server, right? So it requires some extra things. Right, so some depending on the scope of the implementation, some things they are standalone, some things that they aren't, right? So it really depends on the project. But so we try to make most of the things to be run standalone, and then they can be used to be integrated. So if we are able to do it as standalone, that's the approach that we take.
Very nice. And I just want to remind anyone who's listening in, if just put questions in the chat, whether you're from YouTube, Twitch, Facebook. What's the last one we have? Twitter. Yeah. We will give the question to Roberto.
Yeah, I mean, feel free to put questions and interrupt us anytime you want. So we have a lot of things to cover over here. So let's see if we're able to cover these in a full hour.
Let's go.
So yeah, let's go. So before we start, let's maybe like a really small disclaimer. So config in Quarkus has been evolving a lot over the last year, especially because there's been a lot of people submitting feedback about asking specific features, right? And I'm trying to make sure, I'm not completely sure about what I'm going to say, but I think that every major Quarkus version that we releases always has config improvements. So I'm not completely sure if we missed something, but I think that all the major versions that we released last year always had config improvements, right? And the point is, right, so when you have things like this happening, people, when they're using Quarkus for a year, they only use what they had over a year ago, and sometimes they're not really aware on what new things they are, right? So even I don't know, maybe like yesterday or today, I had some user reporting some issues, right? And they were trying to do something that we already supported, right? So that's really that's been happening a lot more over the last couple of months, right? So I think it actually is a good thing, right? Because we are already giving what the users need in that way. Now, the other thing with configuration, I mentioned it a couple of times, at least I think Georgia's even laughed about it, is I always care to do any configuration changes, especially because it's like such a core area on Quarkus, right? That any kind of issue that shows up, it's immediately detected. So, because I mean, when you start the application or you start the Quarkus runtime, if things fail, then it's always blaming on config, right?
That's a good thing. It means it's easy to see and can evolve.
It is easy to see, right? But for you guys to have sometimes the idea on what I do, sometimes I change like a line of code and then I have to run tests for like 2 or 3 hours, and sometimes that doesn't even. Sometimes that doesn't even cover all the cases, right? But it's quite interesting.
I do remember though. So you did a change that, like, it started listening to the environment. Then suddenly, if you're running on C shell, then we had a variable that somehow messed up the configuration.
That was well, like the property expansion thing and C shell, right? So and that's the other approach, right? Because there are so many variables involved, right? It's really hard to be able to have something working. But I mean, I think we did, and so enough introduction. Let's dive into the code. So I don't have any slides. Everything I'm going to do is live coding. And if you feel that you want to see something different, let me know, and I'll try to put it in.
Sounds great.
Max wouldn't let you have slides anyway.
Okay, sure.
Slides cost money to get on here.
Yeah, so one of the things I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to start a Quarkus runtime over here with Quarkus dev, and hopefully that will work for the entire presentation. Okay, so now the first thing that you're seeing over here is of course you have an error, so you have like this monkey picture. Let's just take that out, right? And so actually increase this a little bit. So one of the first things I'm going to show you is how you're able to configure an application and the multiple ways that you can set that up. So when you try to use a configuration, usually Quarkus will complain. Well, not Quarkus, it's actually going to be SmallRye config. It's going to complain that's going to be required, right? And the reason for this is because I have here some piece of code, right? I'm trying to inject the configuration, right? And what happens over here is, well, the configuration is not available anywhere. So of course, Quarkus complains, and then you're not able to restart. So one of the first things that you're able to do is, well, you can set like a default value over here. And this is one of the first sources that you can set values. So this is also going to be the minimum default value or the minimum default source where configuration is going to be looked for if everything else fails, of course. And hopefully, if we come back here and we refresh, then we'll see like this picture of a monkey over here. Maybe you recognize these or not, but you'll figure this out a little bit later. So yeah, so you have a 1, and you have a picture over here. So this picture is actually from this application I have over here. So I have like multiple pictures. And the idea is that I'm going to change the configuration in multiple places. I'm going to see like all of these things evolving. Now, well, I have 1, and this is picture 1. So let's talk a little bit this in more detail in a sec. But now, so this is default, that works fine. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to application.properties, and this is the main Quarkus configuration file. And then, of course, you can put in the same configuration that you have. So to make it a little bit easier, let me just copy paste this. I'm going to put it like that. Oops, sorry, not that file. Or yeah. And I'm going to put 2, right? So what's going to happen over here when I do refresh? Now you'll see 2 over here. And as you probably notice now, I'm a big Dragon Ball fan. So instead of just showing like really boring console stuff, by showing like different values, I came up with like a way where you're going to show like different transformations of Goku, which is like the main character of the series. And so this is his version number 2. And now what you're seeing over here is that setting the value on the application.properties actually overrides default value on the annotation, right? So now what you have on configuration is you have multiple ways to define the values that you want to use, as long as you use the same key, of course, and then you can override them all of these defaults. Now, by default, Quarkus has like the default on the annotations. You have the application.properties file. You have the .env file. You have environment variables, and you have system properties, right? So one of the other things I can do over here now is I want to override this property, right? So I can come here. I'm just going to create a new file. I'm going to set like a .env. Also, actually already exists. Really created file .env. Where is it? I cannot see it over there. Let's search it like that. Probably ignores, right? So I'm just going to say like playground transformation. And now you're seeing that environment variables, they have a couple of limitations, or not limitations, but rules, right? For instance, dots are not allowed. So you have to use underscore instead. And now I was using 2, so I'm going to say 3. And this 3 is going to override the value of 2. And if I click refresh, now you see like another transformation from this character. So now the .env file just overrode what we have on application.properties.
So you get Super Saiyan power by.
Yeah, this is Kaioken for now.
Ah, okay.
So let's go with the other one. So now for the next step, what I'm going to do is actually have to stop Quarkus, right? Because I want to override using environment variable. So because I have to change this on my command line, so let me actually increase this a little bit. So that's the only reason why I have to stop it. So I'm going to do like export playground transformation 4, and so let's start Quarkus again. And hopefully it's up. And now you have 4. Now this is like Goku Super Saiyan, right?
Awesome.
So now you're seeing that even if I have like all these multiple places where I set the configuration, it's always override because it's using the order, which is called the ordinal, and the ordinal follows like a certain value, right? So for instance, application of properties has an ordinal of 250, I believe. Then environment variables has like 300. So then you can use this ordinal to control the where the source is going to be located. So what we do when we're searching for a configuration is we start with the higher ordinal first, and then go from there to bottom until we find the configuration and return that one to you. Now, I'm going to stop this again. So the final one I'm going to show you right now is, I probably have it right here on the command line. So you can use like a system property as well. And now I'm going to do the playground transformation 5. And of course, this one is going, hopefully, when this starts. So now you see like Goku is like Super Saiyan 2 right now. Okay, so this is just to show all this, yeah.
Roberto, so basically the way I see it is that yes, it follows the ordinal, but that the ordinal pattern is set to be like the nearest wins, right? So if you have system property, it's basically going to override everything else.
Yes, so it uses, so each source, so we're gonna say like, system properties are a source, environment variables are a source, the .temp file is a source, application.properties is a source, default values and injection points are a source, right? And all of these are assigned an ordinal, right? And then when we are starting our config, we order all these by the ordinal, and then we go with the higher to the lower, right?
Yeah.
Because system properties have the higher ordinal, they win, right? So if we find that configuration in the system properties, then we use that one. If not, then we'll just keep looking until we find something.
Very good.
But now that application is pretty boring because it has like, it has like transformation over there, but I'm going to do something else over here. So I'm going to say like this playground, and I'm going to put the name. So this is kind of, I'm only using configuration. It's like actually build like a full application with just configuration. And say like name, and this using Qt, but for now it's going to be like that, but I'm going to improve this in a sec. So I'm going to say like data, name, and name. And if I go here to my index, I'll just say name over here. So now it's going to break. It's because the playground.name is not set up. But yeah, let's go to not this one. I'm going to show this one in a sec. Let's go here to the application.properties file, and I'll say playground.name, and that's Goku.
Do you have, by the way, do you have the Quarkus?
There you go.
Do you have the Quarkus tools extension installed that does the property support?
Yeah, I tried that like a long time ago, and it did work. No, it did work, but for some reason I installed it and then I forgot to reinstall it again. But that's something that definitely you should use. So yeah, I have that one over here, and that works okay. So now, as you can see, like the transformation is actually a number, right? I have it as a string. So we also support like direct conversions of stuff, so you can change this as an integer, even though it's not going to do anything, but it's still going to work, right? So that works okay. And now, even though we have the level, so let me put, actually, we can come here on the index again, sorry. And let's say name, and let's put like, oh, it's freezing a little bit. Oh, there you go. And let's copy the transformation so you can see which transformation level we are. Okay. So now you see that even like the name is set up on a different source, you're basically combining configurations from different source all together, right? To build all the stuff. Now, so let's move on. Okay, so we have a couple of config properties. You'll see that you can set up like the integer. You can see like strings, right? So these allow us to inject multiple types, right? So on the configuration side, we already have what we call default converters, right? So, and they provide default converters for pretty much all the known common types, like, of course, everything that's on Java-lang, like integers, longs, booleans, and so on and so forth. Other things like local dates and local times also. And things that support methods like value of, which takes a string. We also support that. So if you don't have a way to convert it, then of course you can implement your converter, but I can show that a little bit later. Now, one of the other things that people have been asking us a lot is to provide a way to support additional configuration. I mean, for some reason, people will like to place configuration on other files. They want to name them differently, right? Or they want to place it in some other locations. So we added something different, which is, so I'm going to come over here, and even application.properties default file
Can you zoom in a little bit here because it's very tiny? The tree.
Yeah, the tree is small.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Thank you.
Not sure why the presentation mode didn't work very well there. But anyway, so I'm gonna add like config.properties here, and of course properties. There you go. And let's see if this is gonna work. So let's put like playground. So let's improve this a little bit. So it's gonna be 6. And if I reload this, well, nothing happens, of course, because I haven't done anything out of the ordinary for that. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to use this configuration called Quarkus.config.locations. And I'm going to say /config.properties. And this actually is going to load that file as well. Now, this doesn't load yet because, as you know, so there's like a little trick over here. So when we use like Quarkus config.location is actually, so any additional source set up over here is going to use the ordinal from the source where Quarkus config location was used, right? So if I want to make this take some priority, I can say config ordinal 1000, and oops, that didn't work yet. So let me see what's missing. So Quarkus.config.locations /config.properties. So this one is Quarkus config.properties. So I think that should be fine. Actually, I think I'm not hot reloading that file. That's like a bug that I found, I think. Let me just reload that.
It doesn't want to transform.
Yeah, it doesn't want to transform. Although there you go. Now you have it at 6, right? Yes, that's actually a bug that I found, unfortunately, which we're not monitoring hot swapping the locations for this, but I have to fix that out. But anyway, so this is like a way that you can set like additional configurations, or if you don't like our name file, you can set that up. And this is not only limited for so this actually looks files on the class path. You can put in here a related path, a full path. It can even be like an HTTP resource. You can come over into like HTTP / whatever, and it will load any configuration that's found over here. So this actually came up because people wanted to externalize the configuration, even though if you don't know yet. So Quarkus does support a way where you can set like a directory called config, and then you can place it in the application.properties over there. But for some reason, people don't enjoy, or some people didn't enjoy the application.properties name and wanted to use their own names. So we came up with that Quarkus config locations where you can set up that over there. And these also, you can set like separated with commas, and you can set like, you can add even additional resources. So my other file, whatever.
So is this what you would use? So you also have profiles, right? Where you put the...
Yes, so profiles. So
how does that play with this? Yeah.
Yeah. So profiles is a completely different beast, right? So let's go and talk about profiles. So even now we have like Coco 6 over here, right?
By the way, Roberto just has a question someone ask here. Yeah. How would hot reload, how would I hot reload, sorry, how will Quarkus hot reload an HTTP resource? Is it polling? Yeah. My guess is
it will load because what we do is every time we do some hot swap on Quarkus, we have to restart the configuration to reread the file, right? Yeah. So that means that we don't do pooling, but we will just reread the HTTP resource.
Yeah, we don't cache anything. We just
we don't cache.
I think actually what the question is basically that normally with Quarkus, if you update like application properties or the .env file, then reload. Quarkus automatically knows that it should restart and then go through the whole motion that you mentioned. But I think what the question says here is that, okay, if I go ahead and on my server, I change this HTTP file, this properties file that is being served over HTTP, is Quarkus going to know that it should hot reload or not? And I'm sure the answer is no.
No, of course not.
HTTP is considered as a read-only static.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you can easily do that by just like, okay, you change the HTTP resource then, and then you do like a quick change on the application.property files to force Quarkus to reload.
Or you use the new hotkey in continuous testing console, just reload that.
Yeah.
And then you're good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for profiles, now, when Quarkus run, they run on what we call a profile, right? And here, when you have these configurations set up, they're defined as like main configurations. But when you're running on dev, you also have some a profile called dev. And the way that you can set up configuration that only apply to that profile, you say like %dev dot. And now I can come over here and I'll say again transformation.to. And if I now reload, well, this of course didn't work because even if I have that in the %.dev, this one still has higher ordinal, right? And the reason why we did this and we don't have full priority on profiles is because if you allow profile properties to be set on a very low ordinal config source, then there is no way to override it, right? So what we only do is we only look for profile properties in the source where it was originally loaded from. So in this particular case, I can go here on the config.properties. So I'm actually not going to use that one because I don't have auto reload here for now. So I'm just going to, but at least you know how this works. So I'm just going to comment that. And so if I do this, so Quarkus config locations, that went away. So yes, let me just kill that one because dot reload is not working on that additional resource yet. So okay, so that's Goku 4, and Goku 4 it's still set up here. No, that's one of the issues that we got, and I'm doing this on purpose, right? Because a lot of the issues that people have is, well, this configuration is not working, it's not being read, and blah blah blah, and then we always find out that they have that configuration set up somewhere, and they're not getting the value that they want, right? So if that's the case, you can use like a really easy trick over here, which is you can, instead of injecting the transformation, well, I'm just going to inject here a different thing so you can see it. So you say inject in that way, and you'll say config value, right?
Oh, nice. I didn't even know this one.
So config value, if you look into the API, it actually it works like as a config accessor, right? So it doesn't give you the value straight away, but gives a lot of other information. So you can get the property name, you can get the value again, you can get the raw value. And one of the things that you used to debugging, you can get the source name from when the configuration was loaded from.
Awesome,
right?
Because I've actually used hacks to do this in the past. Like I really wanted to know, for example, like if the property was set by the user or it was the default from Quarkus. So yeah, I had to like go through every one and then cast. Awesome! This is great.
So that's a pain, right? So if I use that one, and well, now just putting that on our print, so you'll see that the config value get source name was loaded from the end config source, right? Because I'm not sure if you remember that I set up the environment over here a while ago.
I love it. I love it.
And I never cleared it up, right? So now I have, and that's actually happens a lot of times. Like people setting up environment variables that they don't clear, and then the configuration seems not working because they always getting the same value, right? So now I know that the value was set on environment, right? So, well, I had to kill Quarkus to be able to set the value on this terminal.
Roberto, did we show that in the dev UI? Like which source the config comes from?
Let me see. Actually, I think I added that there, but I can't remember. Let me see. No, it's not here, but I think it's easy to add.
Yeah,
I think the advanced are there. Yeah,
that'll be useful. Okay, well, we finding improvements here. That's good.
So no, yeah,
By the way, we had a question from Inacido saying, does it always going to look for properties file for non-external sources? Not sure if this is about the hard reload.
So application properties files, it will go there if the files exist on the application, right? So
yeah. I think he means if you have set up the config location.
Oh yeah, so
you'll always go and look there.
It goes on both, right?
Yeah.
So it works. So it works on. So one of the things that you might not be that is like a little bit tricky to implement, right? Is because you're actually using this config source to configure config, right? If you know what I mean. So in the past, you have to basically set up properties or environment variables, because you have sometimes like the chicken and the egg problem, right? How are you going to set up a configuration that requires configuration, right? But we were able to find like a tricky way to do it, and then we actually can able to use configuration to config the configuration, right?
Okay. So if you don't want to use dev profiles, how would you set up? If you set up, because I know that was an early day, often asked questions. You told if you're on a dev mode, you add your dev profile and in the same file. But how would I get a application-dev or application.prod?
Oh yes, yeah, exactly. So I was talking about.
That was a question we had a lot from Spring folks.
Yeah, Quarkus config properties. Yeah. So let me clean that up. Oh yeah, sorry. I was trying to figure out why that bit came up, because I just uncommented that for some stupid reason. But yeah, so the first few versions that we had on Quarkus, we were supporting these, and we still support these way where you set the profile like this, which I think is convenient. So now you have like OCO2. So now I was reading again from publication.property. So if I set free over here, now because I'm on that profile, this one has priority on the main one, right? Now, if you don't want to have, and this was something that we added some versions ago, you can say like application.dev.properties, and basically follows a naming convention, which is application, right? And then dash the profile name, and then .properties. And in here, let me copy that. And so now you don't require to add these ones. So I have 4. And so this is still the main one, which is now you get 4, right? So this one is always going to be loaded first, and this is going to fall back later, right? So if you have like dev things here, since this is always, but I mean, if you use one or the other, right? You shouldn't be using both. Because this was the, so we have to keep this style for compatibility purposes, of course. I think it works great for small cases. But basically, when you don't have that one, then you can set up that application.properties dev or that properties, and then you can set up the configuration over there, and then you're good to
go. So basically, before we had just the profiles in the application properties. Now we will also look for application-profile ID or name.
Yeah.
And there's no extra setup stuff to it. Okay.
No.
Good.
There's no extra setup.
That'll make our Spring users happy.
Yeah. there is no extra setup. So that's fine. So one of the things that we also added is, so people are asking us about multiple profiles. We have some. We do. Yeah.
And so does that trick also work with the /config properties thing?
Yes.
Does that one look for config./dev?
Exactly. Yes, it does.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So when you have these ones over here, it's always going to look for profile, and it's also and depending on for instance, if you, and it even does it for resources, right? So if you have something like HTTP, blah blah blah. Well, if the HTTP is something like localhost 8080, something just like that, well, of course we cannot auto infer this, right? But if you have like localhost and some path and some file, something like x dot something, or even just x, then we try to search for x.dev, right?
Cool. Okay.
Or if you have x.properties, then we try to search for x.dev.property. So if we're able to infer, from the source the profile name, we do it all the time.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool.
And this is also, so one of the things that we also do, and I think I don't have an example on this, but when we're searching for application.properties, application-dev, or whatever profile we do, is before, in the earliest Quarkus versions, we're only looking for the file in the application jar. Now we search in the entire class path. So meaning that if you have jars that have application.properties files, they're also going to contribute to the overall config.
Nice.
And is that class path figured out at build time? I hope.
Yes. So it uses so basically we follow the class path ordering to load the files. But if you really want to control the ordering, one of what the trick you can do is you can come here and say the config ordinal, and this will allow you to override. So basically, what we do is if you have application.properties in the class path, of course, the one that's on the application is always going to be a high priority. So it uses a combination of the order of the sources plus the order in the class file and in the class path where it was found. And of course, application.properties files found earlier in the class path at higher priority. Now, if you want to have something that has higher priority or higher ordinal that's really low on the class path, you can just do config ordinal, and then you can override the config ordinal, and then you can put that on the front. So they're like a bunch of tricks that you can use over here.
I'll tell people don't use them.
Yeah.
Unless you really want to have a.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking into this yesterday, and I was thinking, well, maybe we gave too many options now, which sometimes is not really a good thing.
That's
right?
always the tricky balance, right?
Yeah.
We got Thomas Corson who wants to he want to mess things up. How about YAML?
Oh no! Don't please don't use YAML. don't use it, please. Yeah. We support YAML, of course. Even though you can't imagine how many bug reports I have where the issue was just missing spaces, right? So don't use it. But yes, we support. So I'll try to come up with that later. So yeah, we have like 20 minutes left now. Let's see if I can cover the rest. So common playground name. So now you'll see that I have like these. So I had like these / common playground name. Say Goku, and I'll say like so SMT Goku, whatever. And of course, if I try to reload this, it's not going to work because I mean this is a profile. So this is like a new profile, but I haven't activated it in any way. So another trick that I can do is I can say Quarkus.config.profile.parent, and I say common. Like that. Let me just remove that. And now you have, say, SSG Goku, right? So what Quarkus config profile parent does is it actually has like this notion of hierarchy between profiles, right? So meaning that on dev, it's also going to load the profile common. So meaning that you can have like a common profile that can be used as a parent to other profiles that you have. If I made that more or less clear, maybe it was a little bit confusing.
How is that different from the non-prefixed property?
Well, the difference is, sorry, the difference over here is that you can have multiple profiles that you can activate, right? So you can have like this common, or you can have like core, right? Playground.name or whatever, right? And then you can just have a combination of both the runtime profile that's activated on Quarkus plus the parent profile over here. So basically what happens is the common one is going to be one that you can inherit. And the point, and au contraire to what happens with the main profiles, right? So now if you have this playground name, like you have it over here, right? So in here, this of course still works, right? But for instance, let's just say that when I'm running tests, I don't want the Quarkus the parent, right? So I can do something like /test Quarkus confile profile parent, and I can leave it empty, right? And now instead of activating this, it's just going to use this one, right?
Okay. Got
so the I remember the reason why we got this is because people wanted to configure common properties for databases to run on dev mode and production, but they wanted to have different things for test, right? So the way that they have done it in the past was they have to duplicate like the test profile, the dev profile, and the prod profile to set up everything on the database, right? Like this, they can just set like a common one to set up all database properties that they want for instance, for Postgres. And then they can just activate the profile Postgres like that, right? And then they can combine
it. They can reuse it from the dev mode and the test.
Exactly. So they can reuse. So they can reuse this profile in either on dev, in either on production, or whatever other naming profile that they have.
And those can also be put in separate files. So I can have application-common.
Yes.
Okay. Nice.
Yes.
I like that. There. I mean, there's so many improvements here since even last time I checked.
So I can see Philip and Antonio is trolling in the comments. We can just get this over with. So he says, "I know it is a controversial topic, but maybe talk about changing property values at runtime." No.
Oh, I always knew that we were going to get that question, right? So no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so the reason for that is, I mean, we look into when we do like a Quarkus build, we look at that as an immutable container, right? So changing configuration at runtime, it's not basically it breaks the immutability contract.
I think you have to clarify. So the changing any any generic configuration at any time at runtime, we are going against, right? We don't want to. We don't believe that you if you change like the database driver. But we do have for credentials. Like we have a way to do dynamic credentials.
So what I mean, let's see. You have this configuration, Quarkus HTTP port. 8080, right? Should I be able to change this?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, I mean, but the point is there is like a very gray line on things that you can change and things that cannot change, right? So
sure.
And then for users, I believe it's going to be super confusing for them to understand what they can change. It's going to be reloadable, and what they cannot change.
Yeah, I mean,
and not going to be reloadable.
But we don't want to triage that kind of issue.
Exactly. So in my opinion, I think that we follow like a simple rule. There are no changes allowed. I mean, you as a user, you can do whatever you want. So you can definitely implement that logic on your own, right? But in our case, I think it's very unsafe, especially because, for instance, when we do build time, we also validate all the configuration that they work properly, right? But if you change something at runtime, maybe that configuration that you change doesn't work out with the other configuration that's related with that.
No, I get that. But that's what I'm saying is that we don't want to have this generic replacement of configuration. But I just want to say we do have it for credentials, like because there is a use case where you have rolling, like you are running a system where you're connecting to a Kafka or database that has rolling credentials. where you can't just start and stop at will. So we have this notion of I forgot what it's called now. Dynamic credentials or something.
Well, I don't remember what the name is.
So if people are looking for that for credentials, there is an option, but not for generic configuration.
Again, for credentials, it only works in very specific cases, right? It's not a general.
It's limited to certain sets. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's. I still have a couple of things I want to show, so let's try to move quick. So the other things that I'll show is like property replacement, right? So you can see that I have here dollar break it, and what actually happens is I can set here a property, another name over here, and then I can just reference it from that. And of course, if I'll do that, then you'll see like Goku, or you see like just P Goku. So that allows you to use the property replacement in that regard. Now, if I remove this, of course, it's going to break. But you can set like a default like this. That's like another way to set defaults when you have like property replacement. So I think that's a little bit useful. And these also reports like composes expressions, so you can do things like that, right? And so it's quite tricky, but it does work. So property replacement, it's
and they just I know the answer, but and these doesn't have to be a full string. It can be a substring, right? You can put
things exactly. Now one of the things that I really enjoy that we added a couple of, and we even don't have the report today, unfortunately, but we're going to fix that, is the indexed properties. So let's just say that I want to.
You spelled it wrong, like you're missing an R.
Oh yeah. So people wanted to map collections, right? And so basically, Goku has his attacks, so Kamehameha and Kaioken, whatever. So these like a list of things, right? And usually come over here, and okay, I'm gonna map that as a list, a string, and say attack or attacks. Right, and then you copy that one.
Before you add the config property, what actually happens if you have config that is not mapped? Do we put in a warning or an error? I can't even remember.
That's part of
that's only for Quarkus configuration now. This is so basically. So we do print a warning when you're using. So when on here when you have configuration that starts on the Quarkus namespace, but this is like user configuration, so we don't know how to validate it.
Sure.
So we don't do any warnings about that. Now let me come over here and let me add the piece. So let me just I can't remember by memory, so I'm gonna have to copy that. Where do I have that? There you go. So no, never mind. I'm just gonna print that directly like that. And so, well, never mind. I'm not gonna print that for now because it's gonna take me a long time. But yeah, I mean the list is here, so I'm just gonna. I can just do like a system out here because I want to do something a little bit different. That's going to take me less time and much easier. So if I do that and I go to terminal, so here is the things. But I mean, this is a pain, right? So I'm going to try to transform this to make it a little bit better. So this is not the so I'm showing like all these injection points, but I think this is not the recommended way that I will do it. So we had something that we introduced like some time ago, which we call the config mapping. And we used to have something which was the config properties, which is very similar. But we had a couple of issues with that. So we end up adding something. Oh, it's here. So I'm just going to unshelve this to make it a little bit easier. So I don't have to type everything. So I created like a class over here, which is like a character. Let me just move that. And now, one of the things that I can do is I can just come over here on the config resource, and I can get rid of all of that, right? And now it's breaking a lot of stuff. Doesn't matter. I'll just say inject character, and I have a configuration. Let's just get rid of that. And the interesting thing about this is here on Qt is also worked very well, because instead of you having to pass in all of these individual fields, you can just come here and just passing the mapping object directly, right?
Yeah.
And so now the thing that we injected goes there, and I think that's okay. Most likely we're missing some configurations. I'll fix that later. Yep, that looks great.
It flattens the configuration into Qt.
It maps, not flattens.
Yeah, flat maps. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so now you see is that what happens here on the config mapping is I have a prefix, right? And now to be able to map the configuration, it's going to use the method name, right? So I don't have to go in and add the annotation and I have all of that crap, right? So it's like a pain. So for now, I don't have this piece. Let me just set it as a string for now. So let me see if that works. So it does not found. Now it's not found because the template is still using the old stuff. But let me just unshelf that one. Okay, and let's comment that one for me.
So it's prefix character. Okay, got it.
Yeah. Oh crap! Doesn't like that one. Although I've just got it for now. Okay, now you have the same thing that you had before, but now as you can see, now you're using the object directly, right? So you don't have you don't have to pass in like that in a map like as you were doing, but also on the configuration side of things is a little bit easier to map. So the config mapping has a couple of advantages. One is that it's only started up once when the application starts, right? So for instance, when you do the injection point, and if you have to inject the same configuration property in multiple places, that requires a call to get the value multiple times, or as many times as you will do to do the inject. Now, because config mapping is only is eagerly initialized when you start up, then you don't have you don't have multiple calls to the config object. Now, the other thing that I want to show you here is the indexed property support, which is something that I really enjoy. So now you'll see that you have like all these values, which are like, this is like a list. But instead of writing it that way, you can also say, I'm just going to comment that one. And you say playground dot attacks, and you do like an indexed thing here.
Oh, okay.
And the same for this one. Of course, you don't. And well, it did work. I'm not printing the attacks. I can add them here really quick. So because h3 character dot attacks, okay. There you go. But we added indexed properties because we wanted to support like nested composite objects. Now, if you remember when I actually was doing this, I had like a different thing. So the things that you can do with this is now you have a list of attacks. Attacks has a couple of extra properties. So let me just unshelf this to make it a little bit quicker, since we don't have much time left. Oops, I think it didn't override.
Does that work for maps too? Like you do areas?
It does work for maps as well.
Cool.
Now, if you look into,
which is one of the limitations of config properties, right? It didn't work with maps.
Yeah. So now, if you look into my configuration file, you'll see that I have like the indexed properties, but now with sub properties inside, right? So this like actually will create like that object that it was over there, which was like a tag. It has like two properties, name and power. So I still need to come over here, and I think I have that on. Yes, it's still there. I don't want this commented. So hopefully, okay. So let's see what's happening. Okay, now you say like prioritization. So this is one of the validations that we do now. So the config mapping, we actually do validation, au contraire to the injection points, because we never know if the injection points are going to be used or not. But the mapping, we always look. So if you have these, it means that it's required. If not, you can set that as an optional, right? And it's not going to be validated. Okay, so now there you go. And now you see like, okay, now it says like an option empty because that's the that's the string that's being put over there. So let's say like that, and that should work. No, I probably forgot about something. Never mind. But you'll see that you have like the attacks over here. You have like the name of the attacks and the power level. Now, a couple extra things you can do over here. You can put like Vim validation annotations, right? So we know that we have. So one of the things I haven't tried was to come over here at the application.properties and put 20. Oops, actually, not sure why that didn't work. Maybe because I'm setting. Are you still with me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. I stopped listening. So yeah. So this is being reading over here.
We do have a few questions. So let me know when you.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Let me just. You can give me. You can throw me the questions. I'll answer them.
So Antonio was asking about when you talk about different profile stuff about mocking configuration, and one of you guys have a police car. Oh no, it disappeared. What about mocking configuration?
Yeah, I was talking to him about that, and I can show like an example. So basically, this one is like you can mock this as a CDI bean, right? But it's kind of like a little bit inconvenient because then you have to implement all these methods. So I'm trying to figure out like an easier way to do that, but it is a way to do it.
Isn't I think Georgia showed that like in our Quarkus test we have a way to override the config for a specific test.
Yeah, but usually what happens is like people will prefer to do that as because that will work for the entire test run or for the entire test class, right? And then people want to actually mock it by test basis.
Ah, okay.
So it comes back to the options thing we were talking about earlier. Like options for everything.
Yeah, exactly. So now you see that
And it's just the last one here. It says, does this object from Slapchan, does this object on working extensions as well?
Yes. Well, not extensions yet. That's something I'm still going to add.
Yeah. Okay. So for user app it does, but not for extensions.
Yeah. So now the last thing is like the Vim validation stuff. So you see that I put like 20 over here, but I don't have any 20 transformations. So one of the things that you can do, of course, is you come over here and you'll say, well, the max value that you want for this configuration is actually 10, right? And if you do this, then you get an exception saying, well, the playground transformation will be less or equal than 10, right? So now you can place like min validation over here, like min, max, whatever you want.
Well, you couldn't, and that's unique for config mapping, or you can do that on the top level too.
No, you can do that. Well, when you say top level, what do you?
On a normal config, like on
a config on an injection point. You mean a config property? No, you cannot do that over there.
Okay, so it's on the class. Okay.
It's just only on the class, especially because, for instance, so you might have those custom validations, right? Where you want to set a custom validation where you have like dependent, you want to validate that the value from that configuration is something and the other value from the other configuration is something else, right? And you have to implement a custom validation for that. So it's kind of impossible to do that with like just regular injection points. So the Vim validation only supports it at the object level. And there we have a couple of other options here. So we have some additional notation. We can say like with name, so that with name will override the config property to use, or with default, we'll set default for that one, or with converter to convert to a different place, right? And even over here, you can say like this naming strategy. I want to get rid of that thing, but it's not going away. Okay. And the naming strategy, you can say, well, kebab case or snake case, right? And that's basically the naming strategy that config is going to look for on the properties to do the mapping to the config mapping object.
Very nice. Okay. And then anything else, because we're hitting over time now.
I know. I mean, I have a lot of other stuff. So maybe like super quick because I have these over here. So let me just unshelf this and unshelf that one. Okay, I'm not sure if now that's going to work properly. If I'm missing something, so play name Goku. So yeah. So let me see. I was having. Okay, where is the name? Oh yeah. So let's see how the validation is failing. Let's put 10 over here. You know, no, it's actually changed a little bit. Now, so in here, what I created was a config source. So you can create your own sources, right? And as you can see over here, I'm just setting like a property called play.name called Goku, right?
Yeah.
Nothing out of the ordinary. So usually people will just implement config source over here, which is the main interface. But what I recommend for you is to look on the abstractions that we already have. For instance, map package config source, because there's already a thing where you can just pass in a map and it will handle everything else for you. So even if you want to like load file, we have this abstract location config source loader, and this already has everything inside to load things from the class path, and it even has all the code that looks for the profiles on their own. So if you want to basically search for a particular file, just extend this, set it the file, and we'll handle everything else for you.
Okay, so
So just the last thing is we have this really nice API, which is the interceptor API. Not sure where that go. I thought that I did. Maybe I did some. Okay. So this interceptors API allows you to basically intercept the configuration resolution before being returned to you, right? So this is actually useful to do things like relocations. So in this particular case, what I was doing is, I remember that you set like play.name in that config source. So this is using like this relocate config source interceptor to relocate like playground name to play.name. So basically what happens is if you want to rename configurations, you can use the relocate config source interceptor to search for multiple property names, like it was, for instance, you'll search for playground name and this will relocate for play name, right?
Cool. Okay.
So we have like a bunch of interceptors that you can use out of the box. So we have this relocate interceptor that does relocation of configurations. We have this like fallback config source interceptor that does something opposite, which is search the value on a property. If it doesn't find one, falls back to another one.
So the question here is, where do people find the documentation for this stuff?
Good question. So we did upgrade all the configuration source, or all the configuration documentation. So excellent. If you go here to Quarkus configuration, just like that, you'll be able to find directly on Google. So you go on the configuration reference guide, it will show everything that I talked to. So all the config sources, injection, pragmatic assets, the profiles, property expressions, including property, indexed properties. Now, those are like more advanced stuff, so they go into, so mapping configuration object is like a different guide. So it has all the explanations how to map it and all the annotations, right? And then here on the extending configuration support, You have like implementing a config source, the factory,
Nice.
converter,
Very
and all the interceptor thing that I was talking about.
Awesome. We do have to stop now. I just wanted, there was one question, not config related, it's asking about will Quarkus support LDAP as a database backend in the future? I don't know of any plans, but that's a good question on an issue for it. I think it'll make sense to have it, but as a generic database, probably not. But if you insert, come and contribute it. Now it could be nice LDAP as a config source, but that's in the good old days. Anyway, Roberto, thank you a lot. This was actually very useful for me, at least. And I think there's a lot of people that got caught up on all the new stuff that's been there. So
yeah, I mean, sorry.
I didn't even know some of this stuff, so this is that's awesome.
That's good. All right, we're over time, and I have another meeting to go to.
Yeah.
So thank you guys, and yeah, see you all around.
Thank you very much.